everyone, and welcome to this episode of Discovering Laguna Woods. I'm Cyndee, Whitney, and I think you'll probably notice the fact that we are in a different place today. We are in the Village Television studio, and I'm going to be talking to a special friend of mine, and she's also a special friend of our show. This is Eileen Lenson. She's going to be with us today, and she came to us over Zoom during the COVID pandemic and had lots of advice about how to navigate the adversity of the pandemic and how to take good care of ourselves. So, hello, Eileen Lenson. How are you today?
Fine, Cyndee. It's wonderful to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're here today because we have another subject that we want to talk about. We were together not too long ago, and we started talking about the fact that there are moments that we notice now. Sometimes it's in the news, and sometimes we notice it around us, that we see people that get into a discussion, and all of a sudden they realize they're very far apart in how the discussion should be resolved, what should happen, is one side better than the other, and so they can't find agreement, they can't find a middle ground, and they end up being angry, and things are unresolved. And so we started talking about, we have experience, we've coached, we've done mediation, we've taught, we've written things, and over time we've noticed that there are patterns of success with this. So what do you think about one of the things, the first thing that we could tell people, if you find yourself in a situation where the sides are very, very far apart, mm-hmm. what is the first thing that they have to pay attention to?
Probably the very first thing is you want to think about keeping the heat down. Mm. And I think we do that by looking at ourselves instead of the other person and what the content is, what they're saying to us, and realizing that, oh, now we're in a stressful situation because I'm feeling stressed, perhaps, by what you're saying. And we have to realize that we're hardwired when stressed to go into fight, flight, or
freeze.
Or freeze, exactly.
Yeah. You froze.
I froze on the freeze, right. And that's not really conducive to a helpful communication style. So we have to think about maybe catching our breath and befriending the other person. Mm. Mm-hmm.
So to bring the temperature down in the room is the first step of, you recognize, maybe that other person hasn't recognized it yet, but you have recognized that this could go in a bad direction. This could get worse. We could escalate this conversation we're having. And so you're saying, first of all, recognize that this is actually happening.
Look within yourself.
Within yourself, yeah.
Yeah. Own your own feelings, honor them, but own them, and then say, what can I do about this?
Okay.
And think about how I am going to come across to the other person.
Yes.
So I need to be aware of my body language.
Absolutely. Okay, body language. Let's talk about that for a second. Mm-hmm. This is not what we need to do. This sort of thing, aggressively coming towards the person, or this is not good body language. What is?
I think presenting an openness.
Yes.
Be aware of what your facial expression looks like. Are your eyebrows frowned? What's that word? Are you shutting the other person out? So be aware of yourself. Be aware of the words you use too,
yes.
and the tone in which you're using it.
Yes.
Sarcasm, for instance, is considered hostile.
Yeah, it's funny, and when you say sarcasm, I wonder sometimes why people resort to sarcasm, because I always think that's not going to go well. It's not going to be well received because everybody kind of recognizes sarcasm, and I kind of, is that a defense mechanism? Sarcasm?
It is. I think it can be a way of expressing anger. Mm. And we have to be careful about defense mechanisms that we're using when communicating with other people.
Yes.
So we have to be thoughtful of that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the language that we use, the tone of voice that we have, when we start actually talking about the subject, or we're engaged already with this person, but when we start talking about my point of view, not versus, but in addition to your point of view, how do we say those? I know we talked about I messages. I feel. How do we do that?
Yeah. Well, we have to be careful about not accusing the other person of something, but rather use the I statements, which is talking about how I feel about something, followed by something that I would like to be seen. Like perhaps, I'm feeling frustrated that you keep interrupting me.
Oh.
Okay. And I'm feeling not heard, Cyndee. That would perhaps be a statement. And so could it be that I can hear you out and then you hear me out?
So you're making a comment about what's, really kind of blocking the effective communication you seek to have, and which is saying, when you keep interrupting me, and then you're offering a solution to that. If you hear me out, I can complete my statement and you can say yours. So you're kind of setting a pattern of behavior. And that didn't feel bad. I mean, if I was in that situation and you said that to me, I wouldn't feel bad about that.
And that's my intent, to not, I don't want you to feel bad. I don't want to put you down, but I need to be able to express myself, and it helps you to know how I'm feeling about it instead of me just acting it out.
Yes, okay. So, and again, I want to really just say that we're not putting this on the show today because we don't feel people in Laguna Woods are incapable of solving problems. I don't mean to put that messaging out at all. What we really want to be able to say is that there are moments when these things just happen. You didn't intend for this to happen, nobody did, but all of a sudden there's this sort of explosive moment and you kind of forget everything you ever knew about resolving problems. And so if you have this sort of like in your mind that there are actual steps, physical steps, verbal steps that I can use to help us navigate away from this anger that we're experiencing and come to some sort of common thinking. Is that what our goal is?
Well, I think it's good, and you worded it well. You put it well, because if something happens, for instance, you say something that makes me, and my reaction is one of anger, I had to remember that we have different filters, that you might say something and you feel the words are neutral, but for me, it's a trigger. And so rather than responding to my trigger with fight, perhaps, I need to maybe take a breath, remember that my relationship with you is more important than this topic that we're talking about.
Should that be the little thing that just floats over our head during this whole thing, is that, manage this relationship, it's more important than anything. Okay, good.
And then to check with the person, like, what I heard you say was, is that true? Is that correct? Because then it gives you the opportunity to say, actually, no, Eileen, that's not what I intended. What I was trying to say was, and then we have a better chance of hearing each other and understanding.
Oh, and then they possibly have a chance to repeat what it was that troubled you, bothered you, or you found offensive even, and they can say, oh, that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say this. So it's hard to navigate sometimes when you're on a different level of calmness. Let's say the other person is having a really hard time coming away from an angry moment or something, or feeling anger, and they're not getting exactly where you are. How do you sort of invite them into a calmer part of this conversation, or level of this conversation?
I think looking for commonality. Break perhaps that topic down into something that you can both relate to and have a shared belief in, or shared value. And so look for that commonality, and it's so that you're not getting one person perhaps who feels like they're winning, the other person who's not winning, because then you get a winner-loser, and then the relationship isn't going to work well. Also, you talked earlier about defensiveness. Be careful that you're not being defensive, that you're really listening to that other person. And broadening your perspective. Try to understand why they're coming from the position they're coming from, as opposed to, I need to convince you
Yes.
that I am right and that you are wrong.
Exactly, because at some point you may need to put into this conversation, I imagine we're not getting our information from the same resource. There are lots of, for example, news. There's lots of news resources out there, not just broadcast news, but there's streaming services, there's chat rooms, there's all sorts of social media, and people are getting lots of different news about different things. And that's where they are choosing to, come out into the world and perhaps repeat those things or say that this is something that I now believe. So it's hard to keep up sometimes with what people are learning about. How do we navigate that? Just say, I don't think we're listening to the same facts.
But you know what else? I think be curious.
Okay.
I'm the daughter of a scientist, and I saw my father while growing up always, there might be an invention or something or experiment, but he's always curious about what doesn't he know? What could be contaminating that research that he's doing? I think if we talk to someone who has a very divergent idea politically that we have, being curious about what is it that is causing them to believe that different angle?
Yes.
And how can that benefit from us and broaden our perspective about what the situation is?
And then you seek to model that behavior as they've just told you in a calm and rational way about their thinking, and all of a sudden that's what you want to mirror that and tell them your point of view in the same way. Is that hopefully how that would go?
Yes, but we also have to be careful about making sure that we are listening.
Yes.
But when we listen, it helps the other person feel valued.
Oh, sure.
And then they feel good about themselves, and they're more ready to give back to us and be present when we want to express ourselves. But to say, for me to, for instance, to say to you, if you shared an idea that I don't agree with, at least I can say, I can hear where you're coming from, I understand why you think that way, but for me to say that is validating you. It doesn't mean I am owning it.
Right.
But still, that's about our relationship being able to continue forward.
Yes.
It's respectful.
Yes, it is, and you're acknowledging that this person has this point of view, has come by it, and is believing that, and it's okay for them to have that, and for you to have a different point of view, and neither person is necessarily right and necessarily wrong. It's just a point of view.
Well, when you say that, that reminds me that why should we ever expect everybody in our lives to believe the exact same way we do?
I guess I don't, but so I don't think I do, but that's interesting. I mean, we usually appreciate different points of view. Sometimes, so what's the situation where all of a sudden somebody's sharing something? Because we usually like to know how other people feel about things. What's different about this situation where it's like a trigger, as you say, it's incendiary. It's like it sets off something.
We used to be able to have conversations with each other, and people were coming from different political points, different places on the spectrum, and it was okay. And today the culture has changed, where there's less tolerance. But we can make a choice to be more tolerant, compassionate, and understanding in our world and with those that are in our circle or that we encounter.
So you're saying do the work, be the person that is open and receptive to different information, new information. You don't have to agree with it, but just be open to it, respect that person who has this point of view, and sometimes in sharing your point of view, you can see a little bit of enlightenment on their face and say, I never really thought about that. And they may ask you, I guess your goal at that point is not to convert them to your way of thinking.
Correct.
But to open them to the possibility of letting this in.
That's so true. And we have to respect their right to take information in at their pace when they want to.
Yes.
But if we're having conflict with that person or with ourselves with that person, and we're starting to get angered up and taking a moment, catching our breath isn't enough, and saying to ourselves, we want to keep the temperature down. I have a technique I've used in my practice, which is I'll suggest to the individual, imagine what's going on between the two of you up on a screen on the movie theater. You're in the back row, so you're saying emotionally detachment, getting you emotionally detached from that setting. In back row, eating buttered popcorn, and look at yourself on the screen and say, I wonder how she's going to respond next. That's going to make me proud of her.
So be an observer in your own situation.
Yeah. In so fewer words, you said it, yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, then it gives you a little bit more control.
Yes, and we don't want, otherwise, if we get angry with the other person and lose control, we are giving our control over to the other person. And I don't think that we ever want to be doing that.
No, and again, so going forward, let's just say that we understand that we're in a political season now. We've sort of talked about that a little bit in our conversation. And that's not every area where we might find disagreement with other people, but it is one that we likely will, and it will likely go on for a while. So this is a technique that people can be using all the way through this situation and others if they choose to learn how to do this and stay connected with the other person. Laguna Woods is a small, contained community. It's not like you can just say, well, I'm just going to leave here and drive away and not talk to you again. And when you, in fact, are probably going to see them, playing pickleball on a golf course or something. So it's incumbent upon us to have good feelings and good relations with the people that we live in the community with. And we want to have that. We want to be respectful of their views. It's just like a little microcosm of the outside world. And we can do that here. As a matter of fact, we could set an example for other people here if we do that and approach these things in a civil and respectful way. Would that be fair to say? And you don't have to agree with me.
But I do, because I believe in it, yes. And I just want to add, one thing we have to be careful about doing is really listening. Listening isn't just about being quiet.
Right.
It's recognizing with the person what they heard, what you heard them say, share back what you heard them say, and be careful to not do yes, but.
Oh,
okay, because that's a way of saying, like, I don't really respect what you had to say.
But when I learned years ago in speech class and all those things, but is such a negative word. And I remember one speech teacher saying to me, and she said, remember, the word however is just a dressed up but. And I thought that was outrageously funny, but it's true. Any words that contradict what was just said a moment before in that first half of that sentence, if you put a but or a however or whatever you want to put in there, still is designed to negate what you just said, and it's not fair and it's not right. So
it's not productive to this relationship that you're trying to have.
Not at all. So yes, so we have to be very careful and mindful about how we talk to people. But active listening is something that it's kind of fun to do. I mean, if you want to enjoy this person as a human being with thoughts and ideas of their own, to give them your time and your attention, it's a very positive thing, and you can always learn something from them. So I think active listening is something that everybody should give a little bit more attention to, and particularly if there's a situation where there is disagreement.
Yeah, and I think active listening really means being present. Maybe if you're engaged in such a conversation, turn your phone off. Be present for the conversation.
Yes, yes. So let's see. We had a couple of other things that we wanted to talk about. One of the things that I want to talk about before I close our conversation today is that when you came onto our show during COVID on Zoom, because that's what we were operating from, it was because I had read your wonderful book, Overcoming Adversity, and I know we're going to put that up on the screen so people can see it. And I learned so much about this. that it really is so much more than what we're talking about today. You had studied and worked with and interviewed and spent time with a number of people who had gone through adverse situations. And they're all different. Mm-hmm. And some were horrible and some were, a little bit more manageable, but some of them were just life-altering. And you came away with common themes and common things and yet individual actions that these people were able to take to survive this, and in some cases thrive as a result of confronting this adversity. And so I know that during COVID, I read this and I listened to you and I thought, she's giving us hope, and you're telling us that we can make it through this, even though we don't even know what's happening to us. We can still make it through this because we know how to do this and we've done it before. Tell me how you came about doing this.
The book?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, well,
thinking about it and wanting to do it.
Well, having spent my whole career working with people who are going through life-altering crises, shock trauma patients, or just real psychological issues, personal issues, I was always fascinated by those who coped well, and not only coped, they didn't just survive an incident, they actually found a way to thrive through it. And I wanted to look for what was the pattern, and it seemed like it just crossed socioeconomic, racial boundaries. So so I wanted to find out what it was, and that's where the book came from. And I found that whereas everyone's going to experience adversity in their lives, not everybody will know how to manage it. And it can be in the small things, such as a conversation that escalates, and it could be, look, Easter and Passover is coming up. There's going to be a lot of people gathering at dinner tables, right? And you have graduations. So to be able to develop an emotional toolbox, to put some of these resources in there, and to be able to pull them out during the difficult times can help us find strengths inside of us that we weren't always or previously aware of.
And you're so right when you say a toolbox. It's portable.
Yeah.
It travels well with you. We've given you numbered steps to take on this process. Should you find yourself in, as you say, at a dinner table or an event where there's a family gathering, and not everybody feels the same way in families that we found. And so these are things that you can carry with you. They're resources. You can draw on them at any point in that conversation just to keep the peace, not to change anybody's mind, because you're likely not to do that, but to keep the peace, have the grace to listen to them and find out what their point of view is. And you might find some areas of agreement that may surprise you. And I think that's the best part.
And I think if we go into these types of conversations without the goal of trying to change someone, we're more likely to find something positive in it.
Absolutely. Not try to change their mind.
And then it's also knowing when to, despite how we function, not all communication will go well.
That's true. And give yourself just a pat on the back for giving it a try. And what did you learn from something that didn't go well? And that's a possibility too. So my dear friend Eileen, I look forward to our conversations continuing, and I thank you for coming in today and sharing your lifetime of experiences and expertise in this matter. And we hope that maybe some folks will take some nuggets away from this and maybe become better at communicating in difficult situations.
Thank you, Cyndee. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Enjoyed being here.
Thank you. And we thank you for joining us here on Discovering Laguna Woods, and we're happy that you joined us today. We hope that you are taking good care of yourselves and everyone around you, and we hope that you watch us on Wednesday and Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. on Village Television, and you can watch us anytime you want to on Village Television YouTube. So take good care of yourselves. We'll see you very soon, and bye-bye for now.